What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Big Dog Brett. Thank you so much for being here. And apparently, I don't know how to click off a banner. So there's that. Mild entertainment from yours truly. Oh, let's go ahead and head and then let's go ahead and go in the head and welcome everybody. Colby, what's up? Brad Pitt, how you doing? Ram Dog, Stingray, Ultra Mega Dog, Isify, SEC Dog, of course, the original charter Slav Olympian MVP, Vic Two. What's going on, Vic? Cliff Millwood, how you doing, sir? Appreciate everybody being here. Man, what's going on, Zephyr Roth? I'm sure we'll have a few more trickle in here. Going to try and do the show a little earlier. Starting it at 9 o'clock and then going until like midnight is just it's too much, man. So we're going to try and stick to an hour today, see how that turns out. But I really appreciate you guys being here. It has been a very exciting past few days. In case you don't know, in case nobody's told you, Georgia beat Tennessee in a barn burner close game. Oh man, it was on the edge of my seat for half of a quarter. And now currently, all of the Tennessee fans are happy that they lost that game because it put them in a really good position. If you go check out any of the volunteer stations, you'll find out that they are just happy that they lost to Georgia. As a Georgia fan, I am happy that they are potentially a playoff team. Yeah. Tennessee fans disappeared faster than their offense. That there is a lot of truth to that. Someone, I can't remember who it was. Somebody in the chat section last week said that the Tennessee offense was nothing but the Baylor offense. And so, yeah, is my hat dirty? My hat's dirty. How did the? Oh, I can't have that. That's not acceptable. There we go. Clean this hat tomorrow. We set a decibel record in a college football game. I think we did. I think we set the one for Sanford Stadium. There were reports that it got up to 133.5. I don't know what the official number was, but let me see if I can find that real quick while we're just sitting here chit chatting. What was the? They should just change the spelling of the word "the" to TEH because I will never ever not type it that way the first time. If you type much, you guys know what I'm talking about. I gotta put verses. Let's see. Not only did Sanford Stadium heed the call on Saturday, but it took it to levels never heard before between the hedges. According to the scoreboard, the crowd hit 132.6 decibels and it went over 130 several times, spending much of the night in the 125 to 127 range. Holy crap. That is stinking loud. The loudest crowd in college football history was that's ever been recorded was at 133.6, and Sanford Stadium was at 132.6. So 133.6 to 132.6. Man, that is really close. Considering that the stadium basically has about a quarter of the whole end zone that doesn't really have any fans in it because of the bridge and the jumbotron. That's pretty impressive. Man, that was really loud. Somebody said 137 decibels. Nothing official, just saying. Yeah. So there's clearly a volume problem at Sanford Stadium. The Georgia fans do not know how to get loud. Clearly, that was not an issue for Tennessee. Was never going to be an issue for Tennessee. They didn't have any false starts. Nothing before the snap that would have indicated that Georgia was absolutely rocking that place. So yeah. So apparently home field advantage doesn't matter, but yeah. So let's just look up how loud is 132. There we go. Do. Decibel loudness comparison charts. Okay, a weak sound, a whisper in a library at 6 feet is 30 decibel. Normal conversation is 60. City traffic inside of a car is about 85. Train whistle at 500 feet is 90 decibel. Jackhammer at 50 feet is 95. A power mower at 3 feet is 107 decibel. Power saw is 110. Sandblasting or a loud rock concert is 115 decibel. Think about that. A loud rock concert is 115 decibel. Good Lord. Pain begins at 125 decibel. We're nearly 8 or 9 over that. Even short-term exposure can cause permanent damage. Loudest recommended exposure with hearing protection is 140 decibel. A jet engine at 100 feet is 140 decibel. So that'll give you an idea of how loud it was. We were just 7 or 8 decibel away from sounding as loud as a jet engine. My Lord. What was the decibel level at Knoxville? I don't know that one. I really don't. See if I can find that real quick while we're waiting. In case you guys don't know, UGA versus Tennessee, Knoxville, 2021. I could spell it would be great. Mm, mm, can't find it right off the rip. I don't know. But Eric Ange, I guess his name, said Georgia was overrated. I don't know how he feels about that now. I'm sure he was vindicated in his opinion there. So yeah. Tennessee OC gave Georgia no credit. Said that they just didn't handle things well and didn't play their game. Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, I'm sure that's what he's going to say because they got absolutely embarrassed. They got skull drug completely up until 4 minutes left to go in the game. Whenever it was trash time, they had no prayer hope of coming back. So, I mean, I would say that too if I got embarrassed like that. Georgia got Tennessee got out coached, Tennessee got out schemed, Tennessee got out physicaled, and Tennessee got outplayed. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. It was complete domination. I have absolutely no fear of playing this team again. Their offense is absolutely stagnant. Hooker was, I mean, explain this to me. Explain this to me. If their offense didn't handle things well, how did Hendon Hooker not only end up not being able to throw the ball very well, but they couldn't get their run game going? And we had more sacks in that game than any other game we've had this season by double, I believe. So somebody explain that to me. Because I'm just old country bumpkin. I don't understand it. I don't understand that. How in the world is it possible that Georgia didn't do anything right and that Tennessee's offense just didn't do a very good job? What's going on, Mike? So yeah, I don't know. Some guys just have a hard time, believing that they can be beat, and that's what happens. Tennessee went out there and they beat Alabama, and they thought the Alabama that they were beating was the Alabama of old. Tried to tell them it was not. They tried to, they were trying to say that Georgia wasn't very competent. Tried telling them that was incorrect. Tried explaining to them that Georgia had the number 2 offense in the country. They didn't want to hear that. Tried explaining to them that Georgia had number 4 defense in the country and a far better defense than they had ever seen. They didn't want to hear that. And then I tried to explain to them that Sanford's going to be 99% Georgia fans. They didn't want to hear that. And then I tried to explain to them that Sanford Stadium was going to be extraordinarily loud, and they didn't want to hear that. And it turns out Big Dog Brett was right on all accounts. They were right on 0 accounts. So yeah. Yes, it is true. This is true. His phone number did get leaked, and the Vol fans blew up his phone. Some reports say, let me just look at it real quick. They on 24/7 Sports, Bennett had to deal with what he estimated it was probably 600 to 700 phone calls and texts Friday. Yeah, so it's funny that they had everything to say Friday night, but Saturday they didn't have much to say. Staquavius for Heisman, stepson Staquavius. Michael says, "I know you and your. I know that you're a Georgia fan, Brett, but do you think that Michigan is a dangerous team to play right now? Is it dangerous for Georgia to play them, or is it? Are they a dangerous team just in general? I would say in general, yes, they're a dangerous team. I would say that if you look at, let me pull it up here real quick. Excuse me. Michigan this year so far, 57, 51 and let's see. They won the first game 7-51, 56-10, 59-0. They played Maryland 34-17. Probably one of the best defenses they played was Iowa. They scored 27, 27-14. Indiana 31-10. Penn State, I mean, they're not a bad team. If we look at their schedule, let's go back and look at last year's performance. Their offense seems to have taken a step forward. Their defense is relatively the same. But I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. McCarthy's a good quarterback, but I mean, he's 67% completion percentage. He's thrown 2 interceptions. No, excuse me, he's thrown 3 interceptions. I mean, this is look at what Georgia does to Heisman hopefuls. When he played against Rutgers, he had a 48% completion percentage, and that was his most recent game. Then he played against Mississippi State. He only had a 60% completion rating. That's not going to work for you. Sorry, but it's not. And then let's look at Michigan as far as their stats go. Let me go Michigan. Let's see what their team is predicated on. I haven't done a whole lot of looking into this team. They average 42 points a game. Okay. That's a weird stat. That doesn't look right. Let me go to this players. Let's see, 2,200 yards, 1,900 yards. They're pretty evenly balanced. Let's see, rushing, averaging about 5.7 yards a carry. Look at their schedule. I mean, they're having high rushing games of 100 yards to 177. They had one game at 243, but that was against Maryland. Yeah, I don't see anything here that's going to jump out and scare me because their offense doesn't appear to be as good as Tennessee's was. So yeah. You said though with Bennett having a great game and a clean sheet, which he had. Well, I mean, let's be honest, and I told a bunch of Tennessee fans as well. It really doesn't matter whether Stetson Bennett plays out of his mind or if Stetson Bennett plays terribly. Georgia still wins anyway. I mean, if you go back and you look at Stetson's games, Stetson's had some good games. Stetson's had some not so good games, and even in the not so good games, he seems to have done pretty well. I mean, Georgia has anyway. So, I don't want standings. Let me look at rankings real quick. We're going to get into the rankings. We're going to get into games this season. So we're going to give everybody a few more minutes to go ahead and jump on. Once we get about to, I don't know, probably the 8:55-ish, then we'll probably get started on that. So let me pull up Georgia real quick. Pull up Ohio State. I'm still struggling with this college football playoff stuff as far as the rankings that they have. I kind of understand why some of them are there, but some of them are not. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So let's look at stats. Stats. So if you look at stats a minute, he's at 68% completion percentage. He's averaging about 9 yards a toss. He's at 2,600 yards on the season. Let's go. His last 5 games, threw for 250 against Tennessee, 300 plus against Florida, 289 Vanderbilt, 208 against Auburn, and 300 against Missouri. So he threw 2 interceptions in the Florida game, and that was a bad game for him. All right, this is my point. So he throws for 50% in this game. He throws 2 interceptions, and Georgia still wins 42-20. I don't know what else has to be said. What's going on, TriStar? How do you call in? Just like this. What's going on, Keith? All right. So, I mean, I'm going to wait until we get somebody else in here to kind of talk about the college football playoff thing. But what I'm really looking at right now is, I mean, Georgia's upcoming schedule is, I won't say laughable, but, you know, Georgia should not struggle with Mississippi State, Kentucky, or Georgia Tech. I mean, they just shouldn't. Doesn't Tennessee play South Carolina? Yeah. So they play Missouri, then they play South Carolina, and then they play Vanderbilt. So South Carolina currently 6-3, and you know they don't have a high-powered offense. And they somehow lost to Missouri. They beat Vanderbilt. They beat Kentucky. But I mean, Tennessee should win this game easily. We'll see what happens. We will see what happens. Let me go ahead and add Keith in. Hey, TriStar, do me a favor, bud. Go ahead and turn your camera on for a second because we get some knuckleheads in here, man. All right, you're good. You can cut it back off. I'll let you in. Sometimes people will jump in here and they'll post adult rated material.
Yeah, I know. I do a lot of these with Uncle Lou and Pigskin Pete and a lot of those guys. So yeah, I get it. But
right on, brother.
yeah, I mean, looking back at that Tennessee Georgia game, I'm not one of those Tennessee fans come and say, well, if it was the rest or no, the better team won that day. And I think that was the best game I've seen Georgia play defensively since probably the national championship game. I mean, that was just a perfect game plan.
I would argue to say that this was better than how we played in the national championship game because the national championship game had a lot more veteran players than what we have currently on our roster right now. So
Yeah, like Jalen Carter, man, that dude had him a game.
yeah, well, that was his first game back. He's been out for quite a while, and Jalen Carter is a scary dude. He's likely going to be a
Oh,
first round
he's a
draft pick.
stud. He's a
Yeah,
stud. The Falcons, if you're listening, draft this man.
yeah, I would tend to go along with that.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Kobe. You ready, Kobe?
What's up, guys?
What's going on, Keith?
Like
Just
Jalen's gonna be gone off the board before the Falcons draft. The
yeah,
Falcons gonna work
long
them.
gone.
The Falcons gonna work themselves right into a middle of the road draft pick. Unfortunately.
Yep.
No.
So just so you know, I need some help. Um, there is a very serious problem we have to address. I don't know what we have to do to find this guy, but we got to find him because I don't know if he hurt himself, he's missing. But if anybody knows where Juan is, please track him down. Make sure he's okay. Call family and friends. A lot of respect for the guy. He jumped in the chat and just told us how he was going to blow Georgia out. And, haven't seen him since. So I knew his mental state was a little bit off when he was making those kind of comments, and now I haven't seen him, so I'm worried
Was he a
about him.
Tennessee fan? I'm
Yes.
asking. Okay. Yeah, I got a feeling this guy has only been a fan the last 3 months.
Well, some of the stuff I've been seeing for some of the Tennessee fans here recently is a prime example of not knowing how to handle a little bit of success.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm almost 28, so I can still remember back, late 90s, early 2000s when Tennessee was, going good. So it's not like, oh, all of a sudden, we're just out of the blue successful. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen Tennessee at their high point. I've seen Tennessee at their low point. I was there in Neyland Stadium when they lost to Georgia State. So, I mean, yeah,
That's a lot of damage.
yeah. I mean, I left there. I was like, I had to convince myself to go to another game. Like, I was like, I'm done
Um,
with this team.
so I keep going back to the 2018 season for the Kentucky Wildcats, and this is back whenever Benny Snell was there, and he was just running over people. So Kentucky went; they were 5-0. They go into Texas A&M, and they have a really tough game. And they had a great defense that year. Had a tough game. They lost in overtime to Texas A&M. You're like, okay, that's kind of a fluke. They bounce back next week. They play Vanderbilt. They beat Vanderbilt 14-7. They play Missouri. They beat Missouri 15-14. They play Georgia, and Georgia scored 34 points on them. And
Hmm.
that was a season where everybody was talking about how good Kentucky was, and then they ran into a buzzsaw called Georgia. And I was predicting that was going to be the kind of the same thing that happened for Tennessee, and that's exactly what happened. Tennessee
Yeah.
come in there, and they thought they were just going to run all over Georgia. Georgia wasn't going to be able to stop their run game. Kirby Smart told them 2 weeks ago, he was like, they're really good at running the ball. And so whenever you have a defensive minded person who goes, they're really good at running the ball, and that's how they throw the ball. He's going to focus on stopping the run game. So that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Well, I think, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying leading into the game. And this didn't come from me. Eric Ainge was on the radio here in Atlanta talking about how last year he did not think Hendon Hooker was that great of a quarterback. And, I don't like talking about players and things like this, but I think this is one of the most overrated football players in recent history because Josh Heupel has created, like, credit to him. He's created a scheme up there that's tough to defend if you ain't got the guys to go out there and do it. And if you got a quarterback that can hit an open receiver, and Hendon Hooker can do that, but you saw what happened when you get a little bit of pressure on him and his receivers are guarded.
He
He
folded
had
up like an accordion.
and not only that, he had receivers that were open. If you go back and watch
Oh,
the game,
yeah.
he overthrew guys. Even the guys that he completed passes to, they had to jump for them. Very rarely did he make a pinpoint throw. I remember one throw in particular across the middle that he made a fantastic throw and hit a guy, right between two defenders. But other than that, he had open receivers all night, but they weren't wide open like he's used to seeing. And his pocket presence was, as soon as we started getting, in the fourth quarter, he was seeing ghosts out there. He had no idea. You guys had an opportunity at the end of the game to make a game of it. There was a drive there with like 6 minutes left in the game where if they could have got a quick score, it could have got.
They're right back in the game.
And I agree with you.
He holds the ball. He held the ball. He would try
He
to
held it too
scramble. And it's
long.
like, dude, just when you get out of the tackle box, throw it away, man. You could tell that his brain, like, he was just not processing everything.
And I agree with you. I agree with you, Keith, full-heartedly. And Brett, if you don't mind if I chime in real quick, the only reason that he was disrupted is because Georgia's defense was getting after his ass all night. And that's
absolutely.
Hey, hold on now. That's what disrupted him. So you're talking about him getting hit. He's overthrowing players. He should have been underthrowing players. He was getting hit all night. And Georgia's defensive front, I think he still got PSD.
Absolutely.
He's getting it bad.
But if you go back and look, though, there were times where he abandoned the pocket way early. Like he would scoot out when he didn't really have to. Like he worked himself into coverage sacks. Yes, he was. But I'm saying he still had guys that were open though. He wasn't. I don't know. It was weird. He had opportunities to hit guys. There's one play in particular that I remember. I think it was in the second quarter, where Keely Ringo was just beat off the ball, completely beat.
Right.
And Hendon Hooker didn't even look that direction. Like, he was looking at two receivers that had their backs to him the whole time. Never turned around and looked at Hendon Hooker, and he got sacked before the receiver ever turned around and looked at him. And he never looked over at the guy that was beating Keely Ringo. By the time he did, Ringo had caught up with him. And
do you think that has something to do with the crowd noise and like the
absolutely.
Absolutely. It was a combination of everything. But I mean, we've seen great quarterbacks a quarterback that's, all this talk about winning the Heisman and things like that, like, that shouldn't have been a problem. That shouldn't have been the problem that Tennessee had.
Do you think he's overhyped then?
Absolutely, I do.
So let me point this out to you real
absolutely
quick,
I do.
Just so you know. So Hendon Hooker, great athlete. I'm not saying the guy's not a great athlete. I'm not saying he's garbage. He is overhyped. And the reason I say that is because
I'm not saying he's garbage either. I'm saying he's nowhere near worth the hype that he was getting. He is.
So let me put it to you like this. So this is the same quarterback that played for Tennessee last year. And last year he had roughly the same completion percentage, 68 versus 71. That's not that big of a difference. He threw for about the same amount of yards. He averages about the same. So he threw for 9.8 last year versus 10.1 this year. And he had 33 touchdowns last year and 3 interceptions, 75 long. This year, he's had 21 touchdowns, so he's likely to be right at that 31 again. He's had 2 interceptions, so he's likely to get one more interception in the next 10 touchdowns. And he has a 78 long. His rating last year was 182. His rating this year is 181. This is the same quarterback we saw last year, and everybody's, going out of their mind talking about how good he is. And I'm like, this is the same exact player from last year. None of this talk was here. None of it.
I remember people talking about him being a good quarterback, even going into the Georgia game. I mean, there was some hype around him, and don't get me wrong. I mean, the dude throws a beautiful deep ball. I mean, when he's got time to sit back there and chunk it, I mean, he can hit the wide open guys. But I mean, realistically speaking, anybody at this level should be able to do that. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at, like, I went back and watched the Alabama game. It is amazing how many receivers that Hendon Hooker hit where there wasn't anybody within 10 yards of the receiver that called the ball. And again, credit to Heupel for the scheme that he's created. It makes it incredibly difficult to stop the run and the pass at the same time. It is super hard if you don't have guys that can just hang, because those receivers are NFL receivers. I mean, Tillman and Hyatt are NFL receivers.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah,
no
They
doubt.
were in the Georgia game, they were just going against NFL cornerbacks.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And they're going to be that. I mean, if you're going to run into that from time to time. And I said the exact same thing last week. If the scheme doesn't work, the only thing you have to line back up on is, can I beat the guy across from me? And unfortunately, Georgia's recruited well, and it makes it difficult to do that, particularly with depth. And that's what happened. I mean, from the very first drive, not the very first one after Georgia turned over, but the first legitimate drive that Tennessee had, I was completely convinced that he did not have receivers running wide open. He was check down, check down, check down, check down, scramble. And it was like, you even heard the announcer saying, this is just nothing but a bunch of jabs so far. You got the feeling they're setting them up for the deep ball. It never came.
Yeah.
Well, and to that point, if you look at his numbers in the Georgia game, well, let me back up. Across all of the season, for the most part, he had averaged, 8, 9, 10, 11 yards, usually 9, 10, 11 yards per catch, per attempt. In the Georgia game, it was 5.9, practically half. And so when you've got something like that going on, it's because the deep pass is not there. I mean, we had numerous times I'm sitting there looking because the camera wouldn't scroll downfield to show you that everybody was covered up. But you could see him looking, and couldn't find a thing. And so after that had happened all night long, when he got to the fourth quarter, his brain was telling him, they're just not going to be open. I'm going to have to make it with my feet. And I think that's why he was trying to get out of there on foot as much as he was.
That's what's so weird is he did have open receivers. I mean, he threw the deep ball a couple of times on us, and I mean, he hit one, but other than that, he was pretty much overthrowing everybody. Like
I mean,
said,
other than that one time, he had pressure right up on his grill, and he was throwing deep
Yeah,
balls. So
and
it's hard to get the deep ball when you got Jalen Carter in your face.
yeah, and a lot of that too is like I think they pointed out in the game too, and something that I talked about as well is he doesn't drop back. Like even when he takes the snap, like when he takes the snap at shotgun, like he takes one step back and then he's just standing there.
Oh yeah, he's
It's
got
like
a snap, quick release. Yeah,
yeah. If he'd have took a couple steps back, he might have given himself maybe another
little more
half second
time.
or so, or second, or
What else?
something.
Well, I'll say this. If you go back in that play that really, let's be honest, should have been a safety, where I think wasn't that Jalen Carter that hit him and he fumbled.
Yep.
I went back and I did like you did. I went back and watched that game. I just wanted to see if Tennessee's receivers were getting open, and they were getting open more than you thought.
They were open.
And right on that play, I remember watching on that replay. You had Brew McCoy right there, dead center, nobody around him, and he would have ran in for a touchdown. But he got hit literally.
Yeah, I don't know about all that now. I don't know about it.
Brew McCoy is pretty fast
on the 1 yard line.
Yeah,
I'm saying if he would have got it out fast enough, he would. But literally,
I'm going to be honest with you. There's defenders on Georgia's team that run 4-3.
He would. I mean,
he would have been.
It would have been a safety, anyways. I mean, it would have been. I mean, I don't know. It's just interesting to go back and watch. I agree with what you're saying, though. He did have a receiver.
If he would have got it out on the 1 yard line, we would have.
But let me ask you this though. After that punt, though, that was like, I don't know, that the game just never recovered from that punt, man.
That was a Trevor Daniel like punt.
I've never seen anything like that, man.
I think that is probably the best punt I've ever seen in college football. Not only was it long as you know what, and it got a great roll. It rolled. It didn't just go land at the corner and go out. It landed kind of in the middle of the field and then went to the corner. And then on top of that, you had a defender down there, 3 of them, as a matter of fact, to ensure that it didn't go into.
Yeah, how about that? Kirby likes to put these young guys on special teams and just let them try to go out there and make plays. And man, Nyland Green, dude, that's how you get on the field on Kirby's team. He got down there, hustle, dive. I know it didn't matter because the ball went out of bounds. But man, had it not, he would have been there. He'd have been there. He'd have stopped it. And that hustle, man, that was good to see. That was good. That's a guy that wants to get on the ball on the field.
I don't know if you looked up this stat, but Jake Camarda, the third best punter for a rookie, and then Brett Thorson, first bet SEC punter in the SEC. He's going to be a good one, man. Plus, he's built like a lineman. He's built like you. He's built like a lineman, man. Yeah,
I was gonna say, I remember the punter sticking out. I don't know if you remember when we went to the spring game, we talked about the punter, like that dude being a beast.
That man got a mohawk. He's really good.
Just so you know, Brett Thorson, that was a 75-yard punt. There's only been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 punts all season that have been longer than that across all of college football.
And he's a freshman.
Yeah. That's one thing I will say that I have to pat Kirby Smart on the back for is he really focuses on making sure he's got quality players on his special teams.
I saw a breakdown. I forget who it was. It may have been Top Billin. I don't know who it was, but they talked about the long snapper on that play. The ball from the snap to the ball hitting the punter's hands was faster than the NFL average.
Wow.
So that ball got to the punter in like an amazing, like elite time.
Well, I mean that to me, that's just a testament to Kirby's recruiting. I mean,
so I got a question for all 3 of y'all right now.
Go ahead.
So Tennessee's a really good team. I think we can all agree on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do y'all think they should deserve a playoff spot, being not even a division champion, not a conference champion, do you think they should get a playoff spot?
It depends.
So this is a very similar argument that we had
What's up,
back
Chiquita?
with
Let me
the
say-
with
let
the
me-
Cin-
let me tell you-
2017.
Let me tell you my position first
Go
before
ahead.
y'all answer, if you don't mind.
Yep.
No, go ahead, Kobe.
I feel like if you don't win your division in a conference, you shouldn't be allowed in the playoff. And that's all I have to say.
I disagree with that. I disagree
Okay,
with that,
yes,
but
sir.
go ahead. Go
Yes,
ahead.
sir. And that's all I had to say.
So
Okay.
this kind of goes back to the discussion we had last week, right? When we were talking about expanding the playoffs and that make the regular season games not mean so much or whatever. But I'm completely okay with like a team like Tennessee or any team like that losing a game in the regular season. And just because you guys lost that one game, it's looking like you may not get to participate in the SEC championship game. And that stinks, man. You guys had to come into a hostile environment in Athens and play a game that honestly wasn't fair, not from a football perspective, but just that environment. I mean, that was
it was brutal.
that was just not a fair game. It wasn't. I mean, we said it would. We called it at the beginning. I think that's why Vegas's line was the way it was. You go and look at all the top 10 teams that have a loss. They're pretty much all on the road. It's a really tough thing to do.
Yeah.
And
So,
so
Keith-
I don't think you should be punished for that.
So, Keith,
However,
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No, what
My
I was
fault.
saying, it sucks that there's only 4 spots, right? So I'm completely okay with, because Ohio State and Michigan have to play each other, right? So something's going to happen.
They got to play at the
there.
end of the year.
Something's got to happen there. And then so you got the argument there. So you got 2 arguments to be made if everything kind of goes the way it looks like it's going to go. Does TCU deserve a spot above a 1-loss Tennessee, a 1-loss Michigan, or Ohio State? And what happens to the Ohio State-Michigan game if one of them just gets completely ran off the field, right? I think if that happens, then you guys are 100% back in. If Ohio State goes out there and beats Michigan 40-0 or, then absolutely. I think you guys are back in no matter what happens to TCU at that point. But I think the playoff committee made a statement by putting TCU ahead of Tennessee already. So if TCU doesn't lose, they're going to be in, and they're probably not going to.
So here's my thought process on as far as should Tennessee get in? Yes, in my opinion, Tennessee should. And I used to think that you should have to win your conference. However, in light of current situations in past years, if you are the best team, then you're the best team, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't have a bad game. Everybody can have a bad game. But if your bad game comes against Vanderbilt and you still win, or your bad game comes against Missouri and you still win, that's different than if your bad game comes against Georgia or Tennessee or, Michigan or Ohio State, for instance. So there's a lot to be weighed there. I think that Georgia has had the toughest schedule, and I feel like Tennessee has had the second toughest schedule. This was number 1 versus number 2, depending on how you looked at it, or number one versus number one. Right. So that was an extraordinarily tough game. I think that the playoff committee did the right thing in putting them at number 5 and giving TCU the benefit of the doubt and saying, okay, if you can win your schedule out, then yeah. But that's also
they do have
don't
to still play
necessarily
Texas and
yeah.
I
don't necessarily.
They have a. I got Baylor, Texas, Ohio State. Iowa
They
State.
play at Texas this week. They're an underdog to Texas. Then they go on the road to Baylor, and then they finish with Iowa State at home.
But let's not forget that Texas does a fine job of shooting itself in the foot regularly.
Yes,
so you don't know who you don't know what team you're gonna get that day.
That's true.
They're very bipolar.
But what about Oregon though?
So
I think they're going to hold that Georgia loss over them. I think they are.
Yeah, that's a pretty lopsided.
I disagree, TriStar.
I don't think they're going to hold it over them as much as people think they do, because I think they're getting a huge pass for it being new coach, first game, new quarterback.
Yep.
And there's probably some legitimacy to that. I mean, I think if Georgia and Oregon played again today, we don't beat them 49-3. I don't think that for a second.
I think that if
they come across the country to play in a neutral site using
Yeah,
air
it was a
quotes
neutral.
here.
Wait, hold
Come
on. Go ahead, champ. What do you have to say?
So for me, whenever I watch, when I'm looking at these rankings and I'm trying to sort them out, this is what I have to base them off of. Who do I think is the best football team, or who do I think is more deserving? I can't go down the deserve route, right? Because that doesn't mean a whole lot. To me, it's who are the best teams. So to me, I could say Georgia is definitely one of the best teams in the country. So I got to put them in number one, right?
Right.
Michigan and Ohio State may sort itself out, but depending on how that game is played, in my opinion, you could just as easily move that Ohio State team if they lose to number 4, because we've seen that happen before too.
I think if
So-
Ohio State loses this game, I think they may slide a little bit because I think if I'm the playoff committee, like if I'm a voter, I look at I start then going back and evaluating some of the close games, like this past
Yeah.
weekend. That
Just
starts to
Notre Dame
weigh.
Yeah. Well, just hear me
exactly.
out. Just hear me out. So let's say Michigan beats Ohio State, right? So then Michigan would go to 2. Ohio State would go to, let's just say 4. Just hear me out, right? Let's say TC loses entirely. They're completely, let's say they lose a game, they're out of the mix. They're going to drop down further. If Tennessee can improve, and Tennessee cannot improve its position, even though it's sitting in that 4 spot, if Oregon, when they play that extra game for their championship, it is likely, in my opinion, it's likely, especially if Oregon blows them out, that Oregon jumps Tennessee.
Yeah, very, very, very.
That
yeah,
is a possibility.
Absolutely.
That is an
they probably
extra
will.
game.
Actually, they probably will. Actually,
They probably will.
But
So, and that's why I'm saying you could see this. You could see it end up like this. You could see a Georgia, Michigan, Oregon, and then Ohio State. If Michigan and Ohio State play each other close, because they're going to play. So what do you do at that point?
well,
And I really think that there is a strong possibility because of the extra game that's played, because of that Pac-12 game, that Oregon leapfrog Tennessee because they have won one more game than Tennessee has.
Well, what I think is what about Clemson too? Clemson is okay. I know the SEC is so bad, but Clemson's a good team. They've been a dynasty, kind of like Bama in the past few years. I think we can all agree on that. In the past few years, I'm saying. But
I think that if the loss that they had was not to Notre Dame, if it was like, I don't know, to a better team, then we could have that conversation.
But I do feel like if UNC goes to 11-1, just like Clemson will in the ACC championship, if Clemson wins that game, they might get that 4th spot.
I don't know. I
That's-
think
It would take a lot of things to happen.
I think the ACC
here's-
being down is hurting everybody over there because
I'm just saying, I'm the devil on the shoulder.
I understand where you're coming from, but now you've got to justify skipping over a Tennessee team who had the number 1 ranked offense in the country that was killing people left and right and will likely
Tennessee
kill everybody else.
Nah,
The only
Brett,
team that they didn't
Brett,
beat is the
Brett.
number 1 team in the nation.
Brett, my brother
Yeah.
Brett. Tennessee ain't nothing. I think we can both agree on that.
I wouldn't
Compared
say
to
it
what?
ain't nothing.
Tennessee is Clemson right now.
I think we're better than Clemson.
What's the difference? What's the
What's
Okay,
the
well
difference?
hold on. Let's be fair. So I'm not a Tennessee fan, nor am I a Clemson fan. I have to play Tennessee more often than not, so it would be more beneficial for me to hate on Tennessee than Clemson. But they have had to play Alabama, LSU, which Alabama is number 1 in the West right now. LSU is number 1 in the West right now, and Alabama is number 2. And traditionally, Alabama
Is the
beats
team
the
in
hell out of
West.
everybody. I get that it's a down year, but they're still likely only going to lose 2 games. That's a great football team. So I would say that LSU is a great football team. Alabama's a great football team. I don't see those same 2 caliber teams on Clemson's schedule that they played. I mean, NC State, is NC State even ranked right now?
Yeah, they're like 15th, I think.
Yeah,
I
they're
mean,
pretty good.
Clemson's played. I mean, they.
It's not a great comparison.
I think Clemson. I think Clemson is just. I don't know. It felt like the playoff committee and hell, even the 8 people was just waiting for them to slip up. because
I
you
think-
see how far
I
they
think-
fell.
Oh God, we
Like-
got Shady in the comments. He loves to throw
I think-
shade at any Tennessee fan. He's a Miami guy.
Well, he's
Oh,
he's a, he's a
He's
He's
Miami
a
guy.
Miami guy. Oh Lord.
Here's the problem with Miami. I
Oh,
would
yeah.
I would believe everything that he would.
Let me
I
get my
would believe.
notepad real quick.
Right.
Slim.
I would believe everything Slim Shady Canes would tell me about Miami and how dominant they were if he would just do it from their own stadium.
But what? But Brett, they don't have a home stadium, Brett.
They
No.
play in
They
the
don't-
play in
they don't
the
have a home
Hard Rock
stadium.
Stadium, the Dolphins.
They don't
Stadium.
need one.
They
They
don't-
don't need one.
They don't
It
have one.
It doesn't hurt recruiting to not have your own stadium.
But they have facilities, Brett. They have facilities.
Yeah. Going back, I don't see a world in which Clemson becomes relevant in the playoff.
Not this year.
Not
They're
now.
too far down.
Yeah.
Clemson is 8-1, currently ranked in the 10th spot.
Those two worst.
Alabama's ranked above them with 2 losses. LSU's ranked above them with 2 losses.
That was just too bad of a loss, in my opinion. I know people love Notre Dame, but it was just
I mean, yeah, there's too. If there were more teams that had 2 losses, maybe. If you had more teams in the top 10 that had, one. Well, if you had a TCU with 1 loss, a Michigan with a loss, you might be able to get them up to 6. But that's
I think
about it.
Clemson's also been hurt a little bit by. I think the national media has fallen out of love with Uiagalelei, right? Everybody thought they had such high hopes for the dude, and he just underperformed, and that hurts.
Yeah,
That hurts whenever the narrative is that your quarterback is nowhere near as good as we thought he was going to be.
yeah.
I mean, he's at 62%. I mean, realistically, Stetson Bennett has way better stats than him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
he's
ukulele ain't no good.
Yeah, he's nowhere near as
I
good.
don't know that if he's not that good. I mean, he's not great. Don't get me wrong. He's not great. But I also struggle with Dabo Sweeney. The guy makes me scratch my head. You've got 3 receivers. Well, you got 4 receivers with just 300 yards in receiving. One of them's at 390. And I'm sorry, when you have the kind of caliber that he brags about having and not needing to go to the transfer portal, you should have a guy up there who's got way more than that. I mean, I'm not trying to pick on the guy, but if you're going to build an elite program, you should have at least 1 player over 500, if not 2. I mean, you're well over halfway through a season. Georgia has 2 players with 300 plus yards and 2 players with 500 plus yards, and one of them's about to have 600. So, I mean, and that's with, home fry Stequavius Bennett.
Yeah, that's the thing. Saturday we didn't see Stetson Bennett. We seen Stequavius Bennett.
Well, I think the video I made said it all. Just call me. We'll get it figured out.
Yeah.
What's going on, Gray Man? I don't know if your mic's not working or you there?
I did think it was interesting that Todd Monken went in there with the game plan to take the top off the defense when that's not what we've done all year.
But yeah, and it was. I don't know how to say this without sounding like a homer in such a way, but watching Georgia play against Tennessee, it was like playing basketball with my 10-year-old son. It's like, yeah, I'll let him get a score if I want to. Dad can't dunk, but Dad can dunk. He just doesn't do it all the time.
Well, I didn't. I mean, you remember I called the score 40-30.
Yep.
And so, I mean, I thought we were going to see way more offense. Now, I guess the weather in the second half probably had a lot to do with both sides not scoring a little bit more than they did. But and the game plan switched in the second half to Georgia just playing keep away. I mean, hell, we had almost a 10-minute drive in the third quarter.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think everybody was. I think if if they were honest with themselves, I think Georgia, like Mullen and Mullen, Jesus Christ, Muschamp, and then they would be surprised. They would tell you they were surprised at the success that we had on defense there.
You hear me?
I think our defense was doing a great job.
Yeah, man.
But watching Georgia's offense in the first half, they wanted to score points, and that's exactly what they did. In the second half, they wanted to play bully ball and play keep away, and that's exactly what they did. Georgia did whatever it wanted, whenever it wanted, however it wanted, and there wasn't really much that Tennessee could do about it. So watching Georgia just take that line and just push forward on both offense and defense, they were getting pushed anytime they wanted it. And then by the time we got to the fourth quarter, their offensive line had no resistance. They couldn't stop Georgia. Every time Hendon Hooker got sacked, there were 3 Georgia players in front of him and 2 Georgia players behind him. He couldn't go anywhere. He was completely surrounded. There was no clean pocket. There was nothing for him. And so that's why.
Well, I think taking the run away early played huge in that game. Georgia was able to play in the box and allow the backs to cover, and we've found success with that, and we never had to change off of it.
Yeah. Let's get into the matchups for Saturday here, guys. I want to change the screen up a little bit. Let's see. College football schedule. Here we go. All right. Check the screen. Close enough. Okay, so noon kickoff game for both Ohio State and Tennessee. Missouri is playing at Tennessee. Tennessee's fans are still going to be fired up because they're still confident that they're going to manage to get into the college football playoff, and there's a strong possibility of that. But it's also possible they don't. But they're still going to have a lot of fan support. Those guys are going to show up. Ohio State, if I'm not mistaken, Indiana has actually had some games where they did really good, except the last 6 because they're all L's. So this should be a blowout game. I don't know how you lose to Nebraska, but somehow Indiana managed to do it. They're not gonna win this game. Ohio State will be playing the backups by halftime. Tennessee playing Missouri. Missouri has had some moments where their defense has played well, and I'm curious. I'm curious if Drinkowitz is going to be able to do anything with this game plan that Georgia has shown them. Now, there's games where their defense has played well. I mean, surprisingly well, especially for them being who they are. But I think that if they can get the scheme covered, it might be interesting for a half. But after that, Tennessee should pull away with it. And you got another top 10 game here, LSU at Arkansas. Arkansas fell off a cliff. I don't know what exactly has happened to Arkansas, but Sam Pittman, man, you got to get it together, brother. I don't fault you for losing that Liberty game. Liberty's a much better team than what people realize. They're number 1 in their division. That's just a tough physical football team. You were saying?
Oh, and I was saying, plus that's Hugh Freeze's job audition for Auburn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got that team. He's got that team looking really, really good. So I'm not surprised that they lost that game. But I mean, LSU, to be honest with you, I don't know what to expect in this game. I mean, LSU beat Alabama 32-31 with an overtime 2-point conversion. LSU beat Ole Miss. LSU lost to Tennessee. They lost to Florida State. I mean, I just don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I'm going to take LSU, but it would not surprise me if Arkansas finds a way to make this game interesting.
Well, I think after Tennessee blew them out, I think that woke them up.
Maybe. We'll see. And I think you got after that. Notre Dame versus Navy. I mean, I guess you would take Navy. A lot of top matchups here right in the middle, right in the beginning of the day. Illinois versus Purdue, Illinois, Kentucky versus Vanderbilt, Kentucky. Anybody jump in there if you got anything crazy to say? Oklahoma versus West Virginia. I'm taking West Virginia. Oklahoma, man, that team is. I don't know what to think of them. I don't know what to think of them. What are they like? They got like 5-4 or something like that. Yeah, they're 5-4. That seems terrible. Already got shaking leg syndrome though, and they're coming to the SEC. It's getting real on them, and they see Georgia and Tennessee out here lambasting people. Then I guess 3:30 game. We got number 3 Michigan playing the cupcake called Nebraska. What's Nebraska like 2-7 or something? 3-6.
They're
Close
3-6.
Yeah, big difference there. Oof. And I'm sorry it couldn't happen to a better team. Nebraska fans are freaking terrible. This is some of the worst fan base on the planet. I've said it once, I'll say it 100 times. It's the worst fan base on the planet.
It ain't Tennessee.
No, I don't have a problem with most Tennessee fans. I mean, they talk smack, but I mean, their smack talking was a little over the top. But as far as just being horrible people, like I don't know how to explain it
Florida's
to
up
you.
there.
Florida, I can deal with Florida fans. I have friends that are Florida fans. I can talk to them.
Well, my dad's been
fans,
to.
Nebraska fans are completely delusional. You think some Alabama fans are bad? Get to know a couple of Nebraska fans, man. They still think that it's the 90s, like in the early 90s.
Well, I'll say this: my dad went down to Ben Hill Griffin Stadium in '97, Peyton Manning's senior year. He said like how their fans, like if you had a Tennessee shirt on or anything like that, showing you were a Tennessee fan, they'd throw cups at you. They try to fight you. It was horrible.
Yeah, we had years where they were. Yeah, Florida fans. We had years where they were throwing batteries and stuff like that.
Yeah, you have to separate something. You have to understand that there is a difference between Florida fan and Florida man. Now, Florida man will do anything. Florida man, they just found out recently a Florida man found a lost nuke, and he had used it for 27 years to power his home for free. True story. That's Florida man.
Damn.
So,
smart.
yeah, well, radiated, but smart, I guess. Glows green in the dark.
You just need a really good like suit and keep it on you all the time.
I want to know what the thought process was. That it's like, you know what? First of all, I recognize this as a nuclear. I recognize this as a nuke. Let me go make some lead in a lead suit. I'm going to bring this bad boy home. Yeah. Okay. Great idea. So, does it surprise me that Florida man threatens you or your dad or whatever? No, because there are Florida mans that are not really Florida fans. There's just that's the team of the state. So, yeah, but yeah, Florida man, always a problem. Florida fan, not so much. Then we got Ole Miss versus Alabama. If you are a Tennessee fan, you better be pulling for Alabama like crazy right here. Because if Ole Miss wins this game, they will be 9-1. They'll have a 9-1 record. And that will make your win over Alabama look even worse. And that certainly will not help you. If Alabama takes another loss, if this ends up being like a 9-3 Alabama or 8-3 Alabama, 7-3, whatever it is, I don't know any scenario that helps Tennessee get into the playoff if that happens. Unless Georgia somehow loses, which ain't going to happen. Clemson versus Louisville. Clemson should destroy these guys. Penn State versus Maryland. Penn State should destroy Maryland. NC State versus Boston College. Boston College, if I'm not mistaken, has kind of shown like fits of brilliance. Nope, not this year. That was last year, apparently. Yeah, they're terrible this year. So Boston College, BC, bunch of crackheads, not doing much. UCF versus Tulane, nobody cares. Florida versus South Carolina. Believe it or not, guys, I am going to take South Carolina in this game.
You trust Beamer Ball?
I think they got enough swag to pull it off, man. I really do. And here's why I say that. South Carolina is 31 points a game. Florida's 31 points a game. South Carolina is only allowing 25. Florida's allowing 29. And I have seen Florida fans give up at this point of the year. I have seen them just give up. They're playing at Florida. I think Spencer Rattler goes down here and puts on a show. And, I think South Carolina's got some potential. South Carolina was ranked early in the year. South Carolina, believe it or not, actually plays pretty good defense. They play pretty good defense. I I think they win this game. Call it a hot take, a hot pick, whatever you want to call it. But I think
I'm taking Florida.
I'm not taking Florida man on this one. Georgia, Mississippi State. Georgia by a bunch.
Georgia's going to skull drag Mississippi State. It's not even going to be funny.
It's at Mississippi State, and it's a night game too. The old cowbell is going to help them a little bit, but not enough. Not enough. Oregon versus Washington, 7 p.m., which I think is like 9 a.m. on the West Coast. So if you want to watch that game should be interesting to watch. I'm going to watch that game because that gives Oregon another ranked win. Yes, I get it's number 25, but I'll take it.
I think Washington catches them.
I don't
think Washington wins this game, but I think this game is going to be. I think this game is going to be closer than people think. It's 13.5 point line.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, they beat UCLA, who was ranked 9, and they beat them by 15. They beat BYU when they were ranked 12 by 21. I mean, this year, Dan Lanning got those guys actually playing some pretty decent defense. That's why I think Washington's going to struggle.
I just really, really, really like Michael Penix.
Yep. I do too, but I get what you're saying. But I mean, if they come out there,
I really, 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 really don't like Bo Nix, so kind of biased there. I mean,
yeah. Well, at least he left Auburn. And he left them and made them wish that he was still there. That's the best part. It's like, nah, I'm not putting up with you guys. I think Oregon wins this game, but I don't know about how much Oregon's been playing pretty good defense lately, but we'll see what happens. K-State versus Baylor.
That could be interesting.
Baylor has had its moments this season. They're coming off of a win over Oklahoma, which again, Oklahoma's not as good as they once were, but I won't say on a tear, but they're doing pretty good here. Now they got a brutal schedule. They got K-State, TCU, and in Texas. So I think they win this game and lose the next two. But I mean, it's certainly going to be an interesting game. Then the same about 30 minutes later, you got Texas versus TCU. Everybody's going to be watching this game. It's possible Texas, which I actually think is favored in this game by 10 points, 12 points. How much are they favored by? 7 points. So, if TCU gets going, it could be interesting. But I'm going to tell you something. This guy, Bijan Robinson for Texas, this guy's an animal, dude. I love this guy. He's at 1,100 and something plus yards now on the season. Just an absolute killer athlete. If he was on a different team, like if that guy was on Georgia, dude, he'd have insane numbers. Maybe. So, let's see here. What else we got? Wake Forest, North Carolina. And that's pretty much it. Florida State versus Syracuse might be a good game. Florida State trying to get their program turned around. They took 3 straight L's to ranked opponents. But other than that, I mean, they did lose to Miami, Slim Shady Canes. But yeah.
Florida State blew Miami out, man.
Yeah, 45-3. But Florida State's probably going into Florida State found out they're bowl eligible, and they're probably going to give up again. So they play Florida at the end of the season, and no matter who loses that game or wins that game, I'll be happy.
Yeah, that's one of those games.
One of them got to lose.
That's one of those games that you wish they just play to a 0-0 tie.
Yep, like Alabama Auburn. Best news is somebody got to lose.
Now here's a funny little trivia question: what was the last 0-0 tie in college football?
Oh God, was that like 1949 or something?
Nope. 1983, Oregon State. They called it the Toilet Bowl.
Sounds about right.
There was a combined like 12 turnovers.
Wow. What game was that?
Nobody wants to win.
The Civil War, Oregon State. I think it's like 1983.
It looks like there was they started it in 1996. to end the 0-0 score. But
They-
after however, in 2014, Wake Forest and Virginia Tech ended in a 0-0 after 4 quarters.
yeah,
And
that
Wake
was a bad
Forest,
one.
I think that was the last one that regulation ended in 0-0.
Yeah,
Wake Forest would end it with a 6-3 in overtime, like whatever.
yeah, but I'm saying like of a game that actually ended in before they had overtime.
Nice. I got a trivia question for you.
Hit me.
What was UGA's first mascot? Without looking it up, does anybody know? I know.
I have
That
no
was-
idea.
And for bonus
Dude,
points, can you
hold
tell
on.
me what his name was?
It wasn't
Oh,
Uga.
No, it wasn't
What?
Uga. Obviously, it wasn't Uga.
No, it wasn't Uga.
Was it coming down the tracks?
Nope.
No.
Was it a
I
mean
feel like it
machine,
was,
red and black?
Nope.
It wasn't a drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan.
Nope.
So okay, so it didn't involve calling the dogs.
Nope.
Hit us with it.
Georgia's first mascot was a goat.
A goat.
It was a goat. And
Wow.
his name was Old Man. Sometimes they
Old-
called him
old-
Buddy.
Old man goat.
Yep.
Now
So here's another question for you. What is interesting about Tennessee's first 2 mascots named Smokey?
it was chosen through the student union, I think, at UT, and basically they were looking for a mascot. It was like back in the early '50s, and they were choosing a few other things, and this guy brought in a blue tick coonhound, and they settled on it.
So the interesting thing that is interesting, but the interesting thing is that the first 2 mascots named Smokey both escaped and were both hit by cars.
Yep, that's a true story.
So, well, guys, it's getting a little bit late here. I didn't want to go past 9:30, but we're there. Sorry, you just got to rub a little salt in the wound there, TriStar. I appreciate you getting on here. It's,
It's all good. Hey, I'll say this: my dad's been down to Sanford Stadium 5 times to watch Tennessee, Georgia. The last time he went was 2006,
yeah.
and see, that's the thing. There was a play where Eric Ainge got injured, and this Georgia fan, now the guy was drunk, but he stood up behind my dad and said, "I hope he broke his fucking neck."
Yeah, that sounds like a drunk. That sounds like a drunk Georgia fan.
One more thing for TriStar. Y'all remember when Nick Chubb tore his ACL and y'all booed him off the field?
That wasn't me.
Yeah, well,
Those I don't condone that shit.
I hear you there, but screw ball fans.
Yeah, he's got a point, TriStar. That was
uncalled for.
I have never
rubbed
seen
UGA fans the wrong way.
Yeah,
I've
my
never seen
dad was
UGA.
at that game, and he heard like the student section like clapping while they're carting off Nick Chubb, and he's like,
Yeah.
"What the hell are y'all doing?"
Yeah, that's one thing that I don't ever want to see happen. Even if I don't like a player, is I don't want to see him injured.
Yeah, I think
Hey, well, Tennessee fans did it.
Yeah, they did. Well, I mean, and that ain't the first time that's happened. It hadn't been just Tennessee fans, but that was pretty.
No, big dog.
that
That was the first time it ever happened.
I'm saying that's happened numerous times and with other teams and all that stuff. But I'll say this before I go. I think Sanford Stadium has changed a lot. Like it's gotten actually become a very, very tough place to play. Because I feel like maybe during the Mark Richt years in the 2000s, like it would be at times, but it was never like just intimidating like it is now.
I'm gonna have you guys hang on just a second. I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. You guys just hang on a minute. I really appreciate you guys being here. Lots more coming up this season, guys. We're gonna have some more guests on. I've already been in talks with some people from some bigger companies to come on and mix it up with us. So hopefully we'll have those guys on here coming up probably the next week. Really appreciate all you guys being here. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share. Thank you guys so much. And as always, have a great day. God bless. Go Dogs.